After a business has decided which strategy to adopt, it needs to implement the strategy, because strategy is nothing but something on paper. It is just an intent. It is a statement of intent. And only after implementation we can expect some degree of results. So strategies are nothing but paper tigers, which means they are plans prepared on a paper, which in simple words we can refer to strategies as blueprint. We need to start implementing the strategy so as to achieve the desired results. Now, strategy implementation should be excellent and strategy formulation should be sound, which means box B is the desired one, because if the strategy formulation is sound and implementation weak, it certainly is an undesirable thing. If the implementation is excellent and the strategy formulation is flawed, it is also undesirable. And if the strategy formulation is flawed and implementation weak, that is also an absolutely undesirable situation. So the formulation should be sound, which means we need to form sound, stable, good strategies and implement it in the best possible way. Now, to implement these strategies, we need to form organizational structure. Now, a structure is nothing but, in simple words, this is a structure. The corporate level, business level and functional level. We already understood about this in the earlier chapters. Now, we need to formulate a specific structure so as to define the roles and responsibilities of the people, and the type of structure I formulate will depend on my organizational need. Now, in the theory of Mr. Chandler, whereby he explains the relationship of the structure of an organization with the strategy. Now, a structure is simply a formation of or a collection of the various designations in an organization. It is a placement, basically. Now, whenever a new strategy is formulated, there are certain problems that emerge. Now, to solve those problems, we need a good organizational structure, because of those problems, there may be some degree of decline in the performance of the organization. Now, when you establish a new structure, the performance improves. And again, you formulate a new strategy. So this becomes like a process. It's a never-ending process. Now, the various types of organizational structure are given here, and a business can adopt either of it. Now, the first organizational structure is a functional structure, whereby the business activities or the operations are divided on the basis of functions. Here we've taken an example of 4 functions which we studied about in chapter 5, which is marketing, production, finance and human resource. So in this type of an organization structure, below the marketing head, the production head, the finance head and the HR head will be assistants helping these heads in the operational activities. Now, in this type of an organization structure, the marketing manager, production manager, finance manager and human resource manager are referred to as functional managers, and they take the lead responsibility in this type of an organizational structure. It is one of the most simplest forms of organizational structure. Now, the other type of organizational structure a business may follow is a divisional structure. Now, here I have taken an example of a geographical division, whereby we're taking an assumption that this business has prevalence in Mumbai, Kolkata and Bengaluru, also known as Bangalore. So, a business will divide its organizational structure on the basis of the location, which is the geographical distribution. So, in this type of an organizational structure, the head of Mumbai division, the head of Kolkata division and the head of Bengaluru division will take the lead responsibility, and below them come the functional managers. And in the functional structure, below these functional managers come the divisional managers, where the functional managers take a lead responsibility. So let's take a scenario through which we will try to understand both the functional structure as well as the divisional structure. For example, the employees of one of the production units of this business go on a strike due to certain unrest. Now, if that business follows a functional structure, what will happen is the HR manager will take the lead responsibility. Nonetheless, the divisional manager, say for example, a strike happened in their Mumbai division. So the HR manager is assisted by the divisional managers. So the HR manager, who is the functional manager, and the divisional manager, the head of the Mumbai division, both are responsible, but the HR manager is the functional manager will take the lead responsibility. And if the same scenario occurs in a business following a divisional structure, what will happen is the head of the Mumbai division, who is the divisional manager, will take the lead responsibility. Nonetheless, the HR head of the Mumbai division is also responsible. But in a divisional structure, the divisional managers take the lead responsibility, and in a functional structure, the functional managers, that is the heads of the departments, take the lead responsibility. Now, a matrix structure is nothing but a combination of functional structure and divisional structure. Now, this is a chart whereby we can understand this, but to make it simple, let us try to understand it with the help of another chart. Now, I've taken the 4 functions that we discussed in the functional structure, and here I've taken the 3 divisions that we discussed in the divisional structure. Now, if the same scenario takes place when a business is following matrix structure, so what will happen is the human resource manager as well as the divisional manager, that is Mumbai, both take equal responsibilities in going ahead with solving the problem. So in this way, matrix organization structure is nothing but a combination of functional structure as well as divisional structure. Just to reiterate, a divisional structure is where the divisional managers will take the lead responsibility, and here we took an example of division on the basis of geographical distribution. And in the functional structure, the functional managers, that is the departmental managers, will take the lead responsibility, and in a matrix structure, both will take equal responsibility. Now, the next type of organization structure that a business can adopt is a strategic business unit. Now, what happens in this structure is a business is divided into certain units, and each unit functions as a separate company. So there is interdepartmental competition. So competition within the organization between departments. To give a simple example, MT Educare has 3 SBUs: Commerce, Science and the School section. Now, all the 3 SBUs function separately. The management team of Commerce will not interfere in the other 2 divisions, and vice versa. So this is an example of strategic business unit, which can be used as a type of an organization structure. Now, an SBU is most suited to businesses which have multiple products and multiple businesses. So under this organization structure, they can simply separate things which help them to manage business better, and which bring about a competition within the organization, which helps in making the organization more efficient. And each SBU will have a separate head, which is either a CEO or a president or a vice president. And this type of an organizational structure will remove the clarity, or the lack of clarity rather. It will remove the vagueness, which refers to the lack of clarity. Now, a network structure is where a business resorts to outsourcing. Outsourcing is simply the process of contracting a business function to an external entity. One of the best examples of outsourcing is a call center, whereby a business outsources its customer service function to an external entity. Now, in this type of an organization structure, a business, by outsourcing a lot of its business activities, forms a network. Say, for example, a business which is into production may outsource the work of packing for transportation. It may also outsource the work of transportation. It may outsource the work of advertising. Now, with each form of outsourcing, it is building a network, and that is nothing but a network organization structure, whereby a business will focus on its core and key activity, and the less important activities will be given to external entities, which is referred to as outsourcing. So a business which is extensively into outsourcing a lot of its functions will be referred to as a network organization structure, and this type of an organizational structure helps a business to focus on its core activity. Now, after a business has decided which organization structure to actually form so as to implement its strategies, the actual implementation will involve good leadership. Now, as the famous saying goes, a leader is not the one who creates many followers, but a leader is the one who creates a few leaders under him or her. So leadership is very important because we all need leaders at some or the other point in time. In the same way, a business will need leaders or people who can persuade and influence the right implementation of strategies. Leadership can be discussed in two forms. As per given in the text, a leader can be a transformational leader, or a leader can be a transactional leader. Now, a transactional leader will, in simple words, ensure that there is efficiency and smooth flow of work in an organization. A transactional leader will not try to do something totally mind-blowing that will change the way things are done in the organization, the way people think. Something like that will be done by a transformational leader who tries to bring about a dramatic change in the way people think, the ideologies of the business, the employees in general. So I'd like to take an example of the movie Three Idiots, whereby Viru Sahasrabuddhe, played by Boman Irani, who is portrayed as the Dean of ICE College of Engineering. There, Viru Sahasrabuddhe, the Dean, will be an example of a transactional leader, because for more than 30 years, that person was managing that college and he did a pretty good job of taking the institution to great heights. On the other hand, the character of Rancho, played by Amir Khan, is an example of a transformational leader, because he changes the whole mindset, he changes the way people think in that organization. The role of Amir Khan in the movie Tare Zameen Par is also an example of transformational leader. The role played by Shah Rukh Khan in Chak De India is also an example of a transformational leader. And leadership certainly becomes a very important thing, because leaders will make sure that the strategies are implemented the right way. And they are the driving forces, and they are the people who are going to persuade and influence the people who are going to implement the strategies. Now, once we decide about the leadership, we need to understand another thing which is called value chain analysis. We already studied about these things when we understood supply chain management and logistics management. Now, if we take a look at the primary activities which involve inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and after-sales service. Now, inbound logistics simply deal with procurement and getting the raw materials to the operations. By operations, we are referring to the manufacturing unit. And after that, the goods are manufactured and transported across places, which is part of the outbound logistics, after which marketing and sales will be done. And the product is delivered to the end user. After sales service is provided after that. So these activities become the primary activities of an organization. And to support these primary activities, there are certain secondary activities which we refer to as the support activities, which is nothing but the procurement, technology development, HRM, which is human resource management, and a good sound, strong infrastructure, which is firm infrastructure. So there should be a linkage or a coordination between the primary activities. There should be a coordination or a linkage between the support activities, and there should be a synchronization between primary activities as well as secondary activities. So this is nothing but the value chain, and this is something very important for a firm to be considered. So these are simply the primary activities: inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, and these are the things that they cover. The primary activities. Now, corporate culture is a very important thing. The way every country has a culture, the way every religion or a community has a culture, there is a culture prevalent in an organization also, which will include the philosophy followed by the management, the principles followed by the management, the values followed by the organization, how things are done there, the ethics, the thought processes, the ideologies, the beliefs, the practices, the standards. All this forms part of a corporate culture. We've had companies in India which are known for their corporate culture. Tata is one such example. They have a great corporate culture which is more of benevolent practices towards the employees and consumers. They have a long history of integrity. And that is one of the reasons why Ratan Tata, after observing the unrest among the people of the Tata Nano manufacturing unit, which was set up in West Bengal, Ratan Tata decided to shift from there. Now, this was a part of the corporate culture. If required, he would have taken a stand and he would have continued there. But in the interest of the organization, he took a back foot. Now, corporate culture is basically a very important thing for an organization because that defines what a business is to its outsiders in a way. Obviously to its own employees, to its own consumers. Now, core competence can be associated with KSF that we understood earlier. Key success factor. Now, a core competence is basically something that distinguishes me from my competitors. It can also be referred to as USP, which is the unique selling proposition. And that is what separates me from the rest of the crowd there. A core competence may be in terms of the technological resource, in terms of the physical resource, or in terms of the human resource that I have. And it will help me to reduce the risk in diversification. It will help me increase my opportunities. It will help me face competition because of the distinct feature that I have in the form of a core competence. So a core competence can, in simple words, I like to take an example of Amazon, which guarantees one-day delivery on the payment of a certain fee. Now, this can be a core competence for Amazon in India. iOS, the operating system made by Apple, is a core competence. Now, what actually makes a feature a core competence can be decided on the basis of these 3 points. The first is that does that element provide potential access to a wide variety of markets because of the distinct feature? If yes, then it may be a core competence. How much value does it add to the product because of which the people will buy a product? This is referred to in terms of the distinguish feature. And the third and the most important point here is how easy is it to imitate this factor by my competitors. If it is very easy to imitate, then it is probably not a core competency. So if the product or that factor that I'm talking about gives me access to sell it in a wide network, and if it adds a lot of value to my business and to the consumer in general, and if it is very difficult or impossible to imitate because I have rights over that, then that product is my core competency. Now, once a business has identified the organizational structure, once a business has gone ahead with understanding the leadership styles to be followed, it needs to make sure that whenever and wherever a change is required in the organization is implemented, because change is the only thing in this world that is constant. Business environment will keep changing and a business has to change and adapt accordingly. So as per Mr. Kurt Lewin, there are 3 steps to implementing change in an organization. The first step is unfreezing. Unfreezing simply means making the people who are going to implement the change aware of the situation. So we need to basically create a sense of need for change in their minds by making them aware of the situation. Then we need to decide what is the change to be actually made. So you can either follow a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach, or you can either take suggestions or not, depending on the requirement, and accordingly decisions will be made as to what exactly the change should be. And once you implement the change, that is nothing but refreezing. So unfreezing, deciding what change is to be made, and refreezing the situation. These are 3 things which is called Kurt Lewin's change process. We can take a look at this. We can just brush up through this. Now, once the change has been implemented, once the strategy has been implemented, it requires constant monitoring. And there are 4 types of organizational control in the third part. There are 3 simple types of organizational control possible. Let us just try to take a look at that. The first type is operational control, where you keep a check on the individual tasks. You keep a check on the production, on the finance, on the human resource. And this is how you do controlling. So you try to ensure that all the departments, all the functions are in place, and in that way the organization will be in the right place to achieve the goal. Now the second type of control is called management control. Now this helps to achieve organizational goals, and in this type of control, what we try to do is we try to control the entire organization in totality or one of its divisions, one of its SBUs. So in this way, we try to focus on different areas wherein we can do management, not in terms of the functions, but in terms of the operations of the activities done. This may be either short range or long range, but the real way to control is strategic control, in which there are 4 types. One is premise control, which means I will not change my strategy till the environment remains the same. In simple words, I will keep wearing woolen clothes till there is cold weather. If the weather changes, I will change accordingly. This is nothing but premise control. Strategic surveillance means trying to keep a check, a general check of things going on around in the business environment that I am functioning in. The next one, which is special alert control, is nothing but firefighting. So in case there are certain major and sudden changes in the organization, firefighting certainly needs to be done. Now, the acquisition of Myntra by Flipkart is one such example of a special alert control, because Amazon, after coming to India, did hamper Flipkart's market share. So in retaliation to that, Flipkart acquired Myntra, thus expanding its consumer base as well as its product base, and thus making an entry into fashion retail sector as well. And the last point here, which is the actual way to do implementation control, involves 2 points. And this is the most important way to do controlling. It involves 2 things: monitoring strategic thrusts and milestone reviews. Now, we took an example of Apple. So, say for example, Apple wants to sell 6 crore phones within 3 months of the launch. So it has to monitor the strategic thrusts. So what will happen is it will break down that goal into weekly goals. 6 crore in 2 months, in 3 months, I'm sorry, is 1 month 2 crores, which means 50 lakh cell phones to be sold per week. So it will keep reviewing on a weekly basis once it launches the product. Now, this weekly achievement of goals, if it is done, is nothing but monitoring a strategic thrust. A thrust simply means a push. So if it is able to actually match up to that weekly goals, it is likely to achieve the main goal, which is nothing but a milestone review. So reviewing periodically is nothing but a strategic thrust monitoring, and milestone review is obviously reviewing it after the timeline that we had decided. So these are the 4 basic ways in which controlling is done, out of which the 4th way is how it is done in the real world majorly.